Hey guys, so I was thinking about this and controversial take here. I don't want the shades to be playable. People were like, "Oh my god, playable shade." I don't want them to be playable. It's having archons playable, which are they're kind of like gods. Having them playable, that's one thing. You see the crazy things, lore wise, that people like Zhongli and like okay, for instance, what they were capable of. So Zhongli was able to, the Gaiun Stone Forest, that's not a natural, stone thing there. Those are giant pillars that Rex Lapis, Zhongli, threw into the ocean to pin down Osile. So, incredible strength right there. The Raiden Shogun, there's the gorge, yeah, and you see, the entire length of the gorge is completely electrified. That was done in her fight with Urabashi, the giant white snake. She just casually just whoosh, sliced her, you know, and went all the way through the gorge. And even now, 500 years later, that gorge is still electrified. Just a casual swing from her sword. The Golden Apple Archipelago, those weren't originally there. That was from Venti blasting that shit into the ocean. Also, Venti made it to where Mondstadt was habitable, because if I remember, Mondstadt was like originally covered in snow, and Venti blew all the snow away. So these gods are incredibly powerful, and that's just the archons. And now we have like the shades of the shade of death. So we have Nibirius, the shade of life. You have Renova. We've met Renova in that land. Shade of death. You have Istaroth, who is the shade of time, and Asmodee, or the unknown god. Uh, People have kind of figured that she might be the shade of time, of a space, which they've confirmed that she is indeed the shade of space. But these are on a completely different level. Why? Because they're shades of the heavenly principle, the primordial one, Phanes. He is the god of Teyvat. Um, so they are extensions of him, kind of like with Lord of the Rings. You think of like Eru Iluvatar, and then he has, or you have God and angels. Basically, the shades are an extension of the primordial one, Phanes. So I I don't think they should be playable. Because what's next? Is Phanes gonna be playable? Are we gonna be able to play as the primordial one? Is the first one? That's stupid. That's stupid. But yeah, we've got Nibirius of life. You can tell. You've got all like the DNA strands to let you know it's life, because DNA makes up life. You have Renova, which she's got her JoJo pose. Just they made a JoJo reference. Um, she's more like, but yeah, she's got her JoJo pose going on. But yeah, we have Renova, who we met in Natlan. We have Istaroth, who we heard about all the way back in Mondstadt. Like when we first started our journey, we knew who Istaroth was. Now, fun fact: apparently, Istaroth and Venti, through all the languages, have the same voice actor. Now, I'm pretty sure it's obvious that they're not the same person, but it must be Venti must have some kind of connection to Istaroth. Istaroth is a shade of the primordial one, Phanes, the heavenly principles. Venti was a animo spirit. Not even close, remotely close to being the same thing. But the fact that Venti and Istaroth have the same voice actress, or same voice actor for all languages, people were like, oh, that's a connection. Is it, or is it just Poyo being cheeky? Because it's not like they don't know the theories. The game theories! Thanks for watching. No, they know the theories. They know that people think that Istaroth and Venti are the same person. Um, So I wouldn't be surprised if it was just a cheeky little thing that they did, like, hey guys, we see the theories, the game theories. No, it's like, so you know what? We're gonna make Isteroth and Venti have the same voice actor. But yeah, Isteroth we knew back in the day when we were traveling through Mondstadt. Um, I think honestly, I think Isteroth was actually the first shade we actually learned about, and yet Renova was the first one we actually got to encounter, due to being in Natlan when she, her eyes were like, you know, right there at the end when, Moika was basically about to die because she made a deal and all that. When the captain steps in and just acting like the complete fucking Chad that he is. But we got to see her, we got to hear her, but now we're seeing what she really looks like. But so yeah, we have of Isteroth, the Shade of Time, and finally we have Asmodee, the Unknown God, who is the Shade of Space, which people kind of theorized. I mean, it is it's process of elimination, really. If you have Isteroth, who's the goddess of time, or Shade of Time, you have Nibirius, who is the Shade of Life, Renova, who is the Shade of Death. Well, then Asmodee, with the way she looks and her powers, she must be the Shade of Space, because she's able to condense things into a small space. So her cubes are in essence a space, like its own little space time or space itself. So I think we also knew her name for a while. I've seen people calling her Asmodee for a long time. A long, long time. But then we have Renova coming down, just nuking the hell, and right here she comes down, she crushes like a crow, and there's when she does, you can see it. She kind of like absorbs it, and I assume that's one way she grows stronger, by every soul or whatever she grows stronger. And she's a shade, so she's already powerful enough. Um, but she comes down. Also, the wings. If you notice, we've seen these wings before. Now, we've seen these wings before. Think hard. Think, Mark. So I'll give you a second. Where we've seen these wings before? That's right, Inazuma, on the statue of the omnipresent God. Same, except with the eyes. I think the eyes are kind of replaced where the the visions, because that's where the Raiden Shogun was putting the visions. So people are trying to figure out now, what's the connection between the statue of the omnipresent God and Renova? Is it so where the Raiden Shogun tries to uphold and maintain eternity, but isn't death? Well, death is eternal, but that's not what A was doing. She wasn't killing people. She isn't killing people to maintain eternity. So to have death being represented in Inazuma, now I get the whole death is eternal, but not for Raiden Shogun. I mean, the Archons, once they die, they can choose to come back. They're Archons, you know? So we're still trying to figure out what's the connection between the statue of the omnipresent God and Renova. Now you see Arlecchino, who is she's basically death. She Scythe and all that. So her connection to Renova is, now we don't know if she was, I can't remember if she's directly by Renova, even through her story quest. She has, Arlecchino's got the eyes and all that. The Renova eyes, you could say. But still not exactly sure where her, if it was Renova or, is she empowered directly by Renova? But I don't know how that would make sense though. Arlecchino, like the Fatui, work for the Tsaritsa. The Tsaritsa wants to bring down the heavenly principles. So the Shades being an extension of the heavenly principles, I don't know why Renova would be essentially blessing Arlecchino with her power, knowing Arlecchino is going to possibly come after the Shades and the heavenly principles. So that would make no sense. That would make no sense at all. I think that might be something that no one's really thought about. It's like, oh well, she must be powered by by Renova. But again, Arlecchino is member of the Fatui, work for the Tsaritsa. She had to save Fontaine because of shit that the Heavenly Principles did. So, I don't think she's going to be blessed by a Shade and then use that power to kill the Shade. I think they're smarter than that. But then we finally get to see Rhine-Daughter, Albedo's mama, Durin's mama, Durin in Dragon Spine, the dragon that we kind of see. We get to meet Mini Durin, but she's also creator of the Rift Hounds, that everyone loves so much. She ate or consumed Naberius's essence or soul or whatever you want to call it, and now the two have like a Yugi in a Tem thing. She can kind of have these moments where she looks in on herself or has a conversation with herself. So this being Rhine-Daughter, when it's gold, it's Rhine-Daughter speaking. When it's blue, it's Naberius speaking. So on the outside, when you see the kind of like halos or whatever you want to call them change, you know who's speaking by whatever color it is. I mean, obviously gold. She's got the gold one. Then we have Istaroth. I also like her hair, how it kind of like fades to like this glittery, almost nothingness. She also has that joke of she had to find some way of passing time. Funny, given that she's the Shade of Time. She has all the time in the world. But then she sits here, and then she's kind of rewinding time. You can see the leaves going back. All the death and decay has now become bright and new to basically the beginning of creation for them. And then we find out that these Shades have meetings. They have meetings. They talk about Asmodee and how they can't find her. Also, the biggest take from this, also this, like, we seem to have a space right here and have all these cubes, which is their Asmodees. So people are looking at this like, is each cube like its own little universe? Like, is this a universe inside a universe? Possibly, but it's just getting snuffed out. But the most important thing to take away, for free. For free. I'm sorry. I've said this numerous times. I don't get the appeal in feet. Now, I'm sure people were watching this and like, but most of us were like, okay, why? Hoyo has been doing this a lot lately. A lot more characters with close-ups of their feet. A lot more open shoot, open for characters. Wuthering Waves does the same thing. Her eyes. Also, Renova's she's got the Gecko Sharingan over here. So yeah, they have meetings and they're discussing where is Asmodee? Maybe she's switched sides. Now, naturally, so Renova says something, or is it one of them says about how maybe Asmodee loves her new master more than she loves her own self. Now people are like, oh my god, that confirms the whole Asmodee being Paimon thing. I think that's, again, I think they're being cheeky. If Asmodee turns out to be Paimon, I think a lot of people will be furious. to have a shade as our companion. I mean, Paimon being a Seelie that was able to retain their form makes more sense because Paimon is a guide. Seelies were guides. So it makes more sense for Paimon to be a Seelie that was able to maintain their form. But if Paimon turned out to be Asmodee, which also takes away because she has more control of time than anything, she's able to like freeze, like when you pause it, it's like Paimon freezing time. And while everything else is frozen, she's able to still move around and everything. So she's more connected to time than space. So I really, really hope they're not going the Paimon is, or Asmodee is Paimon. It would just make no sense. Again, she's more connected to time than anything. But they're like, oh yeah, maybe Asmodee switched sides, and finding her would cause more harm than good, and because they're probably thinking, well, if we find her, we might have to fight against her because she's on their side now, we're gonna have no choice. Yeah, you can see the wings a lot better. Also, Staff of Homa. Her wings are in a lot of places. So it's crazy how important she is. And then you have this. They're talking, and she's just like, Renova, do you know you're being watched? And just, I love the way she's like, hang on. I love the way she's just like, it's like devoid of emotion, but it's almost what you would expect from a shade or a god. Just
whom? Whose gaze could pierce this far?
By whom? Whose gaze could pierce this far? And then we see the man himself, Piero, the jester, who's standing there with this. Like, I love the contrast between his eyes, what we see now, and then what we see in the next scene. Like, these look like the eyes of a man on a mission. This man looks like he is so full of hatred for the gods. He wants to see them destroyed. And then we have in the next scene, with Conria. This is when she cursed Conria with immortality. And we see his eyes. They're more pure. They're not filled with such hatred right now. Like, this is the moment where Walter becomes Heisenberg. I love that meme. But you can see him. It's this moment that was ingrained in his memory to make him hate the gods. But you can see he's standing there. He's like a fucking. This dude has no fear. He knows something bad's gonna happen, but he stands there and faces it. And here she is. This is the moment where Conria, the people there, were cursed with immortality. He just stands there, never looking away. He just keeps his gaze on them. And then we have Rhine-Daughter come in and like, oh, that's an acquaintance of mine, because Rhine-Daughter, one of the 5 sinners of Conria. So she's like, oh, well, maybe working for the Sarisa has kind of, eased his hatred. The group. Our little babies. Then you have them say that the heavenly principles are still sleeping. So Fanes is sleeping. Maybe he's old. He got tired. He's like, I'm taking a nap for 500 years. But they talk about the Saritsa and how she wants to, she set her gaze on the heavenly principles, and Rhine-Daughter comes in with, well, the heavenly principles are still asleep, so, now's a better time than any. And and then Nefarious is like, yeah, you do know I can't let you think like that. I mean, you may have consumed my essence, but I'm the shade here, and my job is to serve the heavenly principles, and so I can't allow you to say anything that might go against them. But she's just like, oh, it's purely hypothetical, Nibirius. And then this is when Renova is kind of like, oh, well, we're going to intervene, but it's going to be within the confine of the rules. So they're going to interfere in whatever happens now. So we might see them pop up and not cry. But they're going to interfere and prevent plans from happening. Also, look while they're looking for Asmodee. But they have rules. Renova says within the of the rules that have been set for them, so they can't go. They're not allowed to go renegade and rogue and just do whatever the hell they want. They have rules, and they know that if they break those rules, there'll be consequences. Despite the fact that the primordial one, Fane's the heavenly principles are asleep right now, there still will be consequences. Actually, that makes me think, what would happen? Because they're connected, they're extensions of him, they're shades of him. What would happen if one of them broke the rules? Would he instantly wake up? Would that be something that could wake him up? But Celestia constantly travels around. Despite the fact that Phanes has been asleep for 500 years, Celestia is constantly moving. So it's on autopilot, and it kind of goes wherever the next big issue is. So is the Heavenly Principles smart enough to equip or kind of bless Celestia with like this kind of automated attack type thing where if one of the shades goes against him or steps out of line, it like releases some kind of beam or whatever and it just destroys them? Or is it something like, oh, you have to wait for him to wake up before they face their consequences, their punishment? Because we don't know what happens if they go against the rules and just do whatever they want. Because I'm sure Asmodee possibly turning against or switching sides and kind of doing her own thing rather than serving the Heavenly Principles, that I thought, you would think that would qualify for some kind of judgment. But if she hasn't been destroyed or whatever, apparently it's something that would have to wait for, after Phanes wakes up. Also, she makes a joke here about, she makes a joke about how, I think it was, let's see, where was it? She made a joke. Was it back here? But she makes a joke with Renova after I think Renova says about how switching sides and all that. And Nibirius says, well, it's better than being devoured. A little joke because, Rhindaughter devoured or consumed Nibirius's essence or soul or heart or whatever it is. So it's like, well, better than being devoured because now I have to share a body with someone. And as you can see, speaking of, you can see right now, it's gold, or I'm not gold, it's Nibirius, because it's not gold, like the ring, or the halo, whatever you want to call it. It's blue right now, so. But this must be hard, and this was another thing I was thinking about. So they're putting into this plan to intervene, but that must be hard for Rhindaughter because Rhindaughter has a shade within her, but she's also a member of the Hexen Circle. The Hexen Circle have been helping us. So how is this going to affect Rhindaughter? Is she going to have to try to stop us and take us out because we're, an issue? Because that's what the Heavenly Principles would do, and that, Nibirius is working within the confines of the rules, or is she going to help us? In which case, would that mean she's going to face punishment? So, it's gold, it's Rhindaughter, member of the Hexen Circle. The Hexen Circle are not evil. They've been helping us like this entire time. But she's also a shade, in a sense, because she's got Nibirius, her essence, her power. So, what's that going to look like for that character in the future? X and Y. Xerneas and Yveltal. Xerneas and Yveltal, and then, and you know, Palkia and Dialga. The gaze of the gods. And then we just have this really cool shot of Piero walking through Nodcry. And then just also, actually, I already know the price of gazing upon the gods. Now, this whole thing that he's saying is in quotations, meaning it's not him actually saying this, he's quoting someone else. Most likely the Tsaritsa. So you see him talking. Now, this is him actually talking. Actually, I'll just let you hear it.
Visions. People have always yearned for the gaze of the gods. And yet, it is said that when mortals look directly upon the gods, they invite their wrath and retribution. And what of it? Lives will be lost, a nation brought to ruins. So be it. It is nothing I have not endured before. I already know.
So this is where the quote starts. I already know, you know, again, everything else he just said was him. Now he's quoting. Everything is quotations. And then he says this. What is the price of killing a god? So this is the Tsaritsa talking, essentially. He's quoting the Tsaritsa. Because we know that's what she wants to do. She's going after the heavenly principles. Now, what I thought was really interesting is, okay, the god stays silent. As if the thought had never once crossed his mind. Thames is a male. He is basically the singular god of Teyvat, the heavenly principles, the primordial one, the first one. So as if the thought had never crossed his mind. He probably never thought that people would want to kill him. or you know, something like that. He's so high and mighty that he probably never even thought about that. About, you know, the others turning against him. And then again, we have him talking to all those who dare not look upon the not look up to the heavens. Her Majesty, the Tsaritsa, says this, and then we go to the actual again to her actually talking, or him quoting the Tsaritsa. Behold, even the gods have their limits. While we get this really nice shot of Celestia. So again, the Tsaritsa is going against the gods. Which again, like I said, with Arlecchino, to her being empowered by Renova would make no sense. Because Renova is not going to gift her that power when she knows that she plans on using it to take down the heavenly principles. And it was working for someone who actively works towards bringing down the heavenly principles. So Arlecchino being empowered directly by Renova would make no sense. You know, it's people were thinking like it's a Sylvanas thing, how Sylvanas was powered by the jailer. I don't think that's the case here. But and then we have this really cool moment here with Columbina. We also look like you know, the Teyvats, the flowers. So it's not the field that we heard about from Lumine, with the field of flowers, where, you know, they're always full in a full bloom, but this seems to be a separate place. But it looks like it's filled with the Teyvats, which is the flower that Lumine has in her hair. It was in Conria. And but Columbina, who is what, third Harbinger? She's pulling an Arlecchino though. She's kind of you know, glitching out there, kind of like Arlecchino does in her idol animation. Also, I love how Piero kind of has like a Nuvolette thing going on with his hair with the blue. You know how Nuvolette has like his dragon thing going on. But it kind of looks like the same thing with Piero. What is the price of killing a god? But yeah, you think of like right here, like these are the eyes of a man on a mission. Probably the most well recognized moment in, like, everything started from this essentially. But every time we've seen Conria, this is what we see, which means it looks like the heavenly Asmodee probably did the most damage because it's her power that we're seeing mostly, you know, all around here. There's just cubes everywhere. Which, if she's able to confine things to a small, it might be possible that these are all people and buildings and whatever she managed to confine within her space as like a punishment sort of thing. Because I don't think, I mean, she sends out cubes like that as an attack, as we see it ourselves in the very beginning of the game. Her power mostly consists of cubes. But the fact that they're all just kind of staying there and hovering there, it kind of makes you think that things are inside and they're just being confined to that space. I also like to say that Renova seems to be the kind of the one in charge of the shades, which kind of makes sense because what's more permanent than death? I mean, death is probably the strongest one. You know, stronger than life, stronger than death, stronger than life, stronger than time. Because even time can't outrun death. You know, everything has its end. And obviously, naturally stronger than, well, not space, but, well, then again, space too, because it's like you think of our space, right? Of our universe. One day, our universe, that's going to come to an end. There's going to be a moment so far into the future you can't even imagine, when every star will go out, our universe will end. It'll just be pitch black and just darkness. So not even space can outrun death. Everything dies. No matter how fast, no matter how old, everything dies. Sometimes, you know, even the gods, these unkillable, immortal beings, even they have their time. Look at like the Greek pantheon. You know, you had the Greek pantheon, Zeus and Hades, and even they were stuck within the confines of death with the fates. They all had little, you know, threads that were woven for every single one of them. And no matter how immortal you thought you were, once, just because you're immortal doesn't mean you're not going to die at some point from something. You know, your immortality being removed. Everything dies at some point. So Renova would make sense that she's the most powerful of the shades, and she's kind of the leader because nothing escapes death. No matter what you think, you cannot escape death. Like I said, even our own universe at one day is going to die. So I just like the fact that she's kind of looks like she's the leader. I like the fact that we kind of get to see this historic moment in the game that we've heard so much about her cursing Conria with the curse of immortality. I would have loved to see more than this, though, like other people being affected. I would have loved to see the moment where everyone was like turning into the abyss, you know, turning into hilly churls and stuff like that. I mean, that's a huge moment. And I've said before, like, imagine how horrible that was. You're a woman child, and you're being cursed with immortality, and you're being turned into these hideous monsters, all for something you had nothing to do with. And it just shows the detachment of gods from living beings. That just, like, they're so indifferent. It's like, I really don't care. You guys can live your best life or not. I really don't care. One of you steps out of line. It's corporal punishment. One of you fucks up, everyone gets punished. Oh, you 5 sinners, congrats. You just fucked over your entire nation. Um, but I would have loved, and hopefully they do show more of that, because I would love to see more of what happened with Conria. We've got little glimpses of it, but I want to see the full thing of what went down in Conria. The battle going on, the destruction, the cursing, people falling and their bodies just, ripping apart into new forms. And I want to see that. It really will just dig into your mind how tragic it was, and all because of the heavenly principles. But Piero, he stood there like a fucking Chad. He took it, and he never took his eyes off Renova. He stared at her, thinking, I'm going to get you one day. I am going to get you. Not just you, but all the gods. But yeah. Anyway. But as I was saying, I really hope that they're not playable. The Shades, I don't hope I hope they're not playable. It's like you see someone like Alice. Alice is incredibly powerful. She's probably more powerful than the Archons. I don't want her to be playable. When you have that level of power, but then you have to nerf that character to make them playable, it just takes away from it. Alice can do anything. She can do anything. She's omnipresent, essentially. She's omniscient. She can do anything she wants. So to have her as a playable character, then have to nerf her so where she is, it would make, again, the heavenly principles. Fanes. Are we going to get Fanes as playable one day? That make no sense. People were like, Renova. Okay, Renova. The woman who raises her hand like this and can wipe out anything. How do you nerf that for a playable character? That, I don't want them playable. Some characters should just not be playable. They just shouldn't. Like Dainsleif, I love Dainsleif. I don't want him to be playable. I mean, from a game perspective, gameplay, because he doesn't wield any vision and he uses Abyss, it could prove to be cool, but he is so overpowered. He's so powerful. I don't want powerful beings like that. I know we have the Archons, but but I don't want the Shades playable. Again, there's just some characters that should not be playable. The Shades are one of them. I mean, I can't wait to see their models, what they look like in game, because I think they're going to be absolutely gorgeous. But same thing with Fanes. I wonder what he's going to look like. Also, speaking of models, this is what I was hoping Varka looked like. So they finally, not too long ago, like a couple months ago, whatever, they kind of showed Grandmaster Varka. And he's like this young guy. This is kind of what I thought he was going to look like, except, more scars, maybe a little heftier. But this is kind of what I thought Grandmaster Varka was going to look like. But instead, he's like this young, attractive, tall. I thought he was kind of going to look more like Piero. When I first heard Grandmaster Varka, I'm thinking Varka, and for some reason, something like this popped into my mind. Very gruff, someone who looks like they've been out there, just more scars and all that. But alas, that's not what we got. We got a young, handsome man as Grandmaster Varka. But, yeah, this is what I kind of originally thought he would look like. Something like that. But, seeing Nod Cry, kind of like a techie, kind of almost steampunk in some places for Nod Cry. Celestia. I mean, this dropped on a Tuesday night. It was like 12 o'clock in the morning and I saw it drop. I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck, Hoyo? And I should end. I've been going on longer than I need to. But, yeah, just things to think about. Like I said, Rhine daughter, what's going to happen with her? She's clearly helping us. She's a member of the Hexen Circle. She's Albedo's mother. But she's also got a shade that she's consumed. So she kind of has to, go along with the other shades, otherwise suffer the consequences. So is she going to try to kill us? Is she Like, oh hey, I'm supposed to kill you, but I'm not going to. You know, and as for Asmodee, again, I don't think that's Paimon, because Paimon seems associated with time more than anything, because she's the one who stops time and speeds things up. And, you know, when you're on that screen, she's the one still floating around and moving while everything else is frozen. So she's more associated with time. So I don't think Asmodee or the unknown god, I don't think the Shade of Space and Paimon are the same person. Also, I don't think Venti and Istaroth. Again, I think Hoyo is just being cheeky. They know that people have the theories about Istaroth and Venti being the same person, but again, one is a shade, Istaroth, and one was an Animo spirit, Venti. So Venti might have some connection with her, as in blessed by her in some kind of way or something, but I don't. They're not the same character. But I think the two biggest questions people still have is the connection between the Renova and the statue of the omnipresent God in Inazuma, and Renova and Arlecchino. Because again, I don't think Arlecchino was blessed by or given powers directly by Renova when Arlecchino plans to take out the Heavenly Principles at the behest of the Tsaritsa, who is also was, hey, I want you to gather the Gnosis, and we're gonna launch an attack on the Heavenly Principles and take them down. You know, so that connection, I'm sure it'll be explained. I'm sure it'll be explained why Renova, her wings, that symbol, again, Arlecchino, Staff of Homa, the statue of the omnipresent God, those wings are everywhere if you know where to look. Seriously, they are everywhere. In some shape or form, Renova's wings are everywhere. So I think Renova is probably the most mysterious, despite the fact that we've seen her before. We know who she is. She's still more mysterious than Istaroth and Nibirius and hell, I think we know more about Asmodee than we know about Renova. But anyway, that's gonna do for me. You guys know the drill. I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.